The best adventure films aren't just visually stunning, they're emotionally real. Here's how I craft authentic stories as an adventure filmmaker. Let's dive in. Authenticity is important in filmmaking. We want to buy into stories that we believe are real. It's why we watch TV, it's why we watch movies. We want to be transported into another world. And when we're able to tell stories of real, genuine human emotions, we can transport our audiences and have them buy into our film so much more. This matters, of course, because we want people to enjoy our work and we want to be creating the best films possible, but it also definitely is important to brands. Brands that are sharing inauthentic stories are totally missing out on the potential connection to customer bases. Let's take a ski company, for example. Ski company X wants to create a film with an athlete in the skiing community. These days, the reason we love watching creators so much is because we have a connection to this person. We can feel connected to their life and their missions and their hopes and their dreams and their athletic pursuits. Taking that one step farther, if you as a filmmaker or a brand wants to share a story about somebody that's just being interesting in the community and doesn't have the influencer numbers or the reach that a potential creator might, authentic stories are even more important because you have to convince your audience within the first couple minutes, who is this person and why do we care about them? Authenticity builds these emotional connections. And what we're trying to do with filmmaking is build an emotional connection with our audience. Regardless of what type of adventure film you're trying to make. If you're trying to make a kayak film, that's just you sending sick rapids through Brazil, people are gonna love it and they're gonna be stoked. That's an emotional connection. If you're trying to tell a deep, hard-hitting story about inclusion or accessibility into the outdoors or about social justice or racial justice within the outdoor industry, these films can build a different type of emotional connection, but all of those emotions serve as building a bridge between you as the filmmaker and your audience. The stronger you can build that bridge, the better connection your film will have in the industry, the better success it will likely have, and the more opportunities you may get down the line to be asked to do similar projects or projects that are more in line with what you want as a filmmaker. Now that you know why and how authenticity can be important, let's talk about what we need to do to get there. This process for me always begins at the bottom, which is connecting with a subject of a film. Subjects are people, characters for our films. This could be an athlete, this could be somebody you find interesting. Regardless of who they are, it's really important up front to build that connection with them. I get a lot of inspiration personally through listening to podcasts, through reading magazines, through just perusing the stories that I'm hearing in the outdoor industry about people that are kind of making waves. This can be a great way to connect with somebody that may be outside of your immediate circle, but somebody you're a fan of or that you really admire what they're doing in the space. You don't always need to be working with the top ambassadors, the top athletes, or the top influencers in the industry in order to make a really interesting film. Once you've identified that character and who that subject is, I encourage you to build trust with the person that you're filming. Once you agree to creating a film together, over time, that trust process gets built. Up front, I'm not asking a lot of the people that I work with for the first time. I'm not always telling them to share their deepest, darkest secrets. I'm not telling them to do something they're not comfortable with. I'm often trying to follow them through areas or situations in which they're very comfortable. If I don't know the person, this can be a great time for me to kind of put the camera away half of the day and just chat with them and get to know them as a person first if I'm going to be the one that is very honored to be sharing their story. It's a vulnerable position to trusting somebody to share that story with and taking that on as a filmmaker and doing everything you can to make that person comfortable. So down the line, you can have those bigger asks. You can ask the hard-hitting questions in the interviews. You can ask them to stage certain things. If you don't build that trust up front, you won't be able to do those more creative, experimental things in a collaboration with them towards the end. And over time, they'll get more comfortable with you, they'll get more comfortable with your camera, and you can start to build up that rapport and that collaboration within the project. When I was working in the world of foreign policy, they had this metaphor that I loved about the rapport bucket. When we get to know people and start to build rapport, we start to fill up that bucket. The more rapport that we put in that bucket, the more friendship we build, the tighter connection we have, the more inside jokes that we have, the more that bucket gets filled. Every time we have to ask somebody to do something that they may not be comfortable with, you take a little bit out of that rapport bucket. If you start not knowing anybody and you just have an empty bucket, if you ask somebody to do something they're not comfortable with, you're pulling from an empty source and you're not going to get anything. If you filled that rapport bucket to the brim and you're able to ask something of them, or even better, they're able to suggest something that they might be comfortable with that you might not even have thought of, you can start to build that authentic connection, because that's really where collaboration goes. Once you ask those hard-hitting moments and you ask for those vulnerable, unscripted moments of their daily life that they might not be up front totally comfortable with you filming, you're taking a little bit out of that rapport bucket, and you can make sure to put it in later by buying them dinner or by putting the camera away at the end of the day and just processing with them what that might have felt like. Adventure filmmaking and documentary filmmaking are really, really similar. Whether you're on a mountain or in the snow or on the beach or in the water, these human soft skill interactions are, in my opinion, the most important part of creating authentic projects. If you're listening to your subjects and really genuinely listening to what your character in your film is saying to you, you can build a film that is very genuinely tailored to them. As the filmmaker, I have definitely in the past gone in with a plan of this is what I want to create. I heard your story on a podcast and I think this is exactly what the film should be. And then only after spending time with them and learning what it is that they're going through did that film start to shift. Maybe my perceptions as the filmmaker are way less important than what their perspectives are as the people that are actually doing the adventure, that are actually participating in the activity or going on the expedition. Planning can go a really long way in creating a great film. And I've talked on this channel about the importance of pre-production, but I also think that listening and being willing to adapt will ultimately make the most authentic story. But it's not easy. It's hard to go in and totally throw up your plans and say, hey, whatever you want to do, let's do it. And being able to adapt and be on the fly, film whatever they want to film, or if they feel like something's important that they want to be said, you say it and you figure out a way to tie it into the narrative in the editing room. My final recommendation when it comes to building authentic adventure films is embrace imperfection. It's really easy as filmmakers to want always perfect quality. We want the best sound, we want the best interview clips, we want the best shot at the best moment in the best lighting. But being imperfect can sometimes be the most human. As humans, we're not often in a perfect setting. I'm not sitting in this room with great lighting all the time, fixing my beanie so it's just right and stands up in just the right way. Sometimes I look bad. Sometimes I'm just like waking up and all over the place, and if I'm sitting in a sleeping bag at 2 a.m. and I can't sleep and I turn to the camera and I say like, oh, I'm so wiped, this is crazy, I just need to sleep, but like I can't stop thinking about the powder for tomorrow. That will allow you a genuine human connection to me. You'd be like, oh man, that's crazy. I'm so excited to see what he comes up with or see what's gonna happen tomorrow. Those unscripted moments of vulnerability can be some of the greatest moments to filmmaking. I definitely fell victim to this when I was first starting out, of being over edited, making films that were flawless and that they were perfect. If a shot was out of focus, it wouldn't be included. If the audio wasn't great, I wasn't gonna include it. If the athlete didn't articulate it 100% perfectly every time, it wasn't gonna get included. But I think including those laughters, including moments of them kind of bumbling over their words while they're talking to somebody because they're so excited, I think is human. And including those human moments allows you to build that connection that we talked about at the beginning of this video. Letting life unfold and being patient with the filmmaking process rather than rushing to get the perfect shot every time will allow a vulnerable look into this subject's life, into this athlete's life, and we can see a more human connection can be made. Don't be afraid to show conflict. Don't be afraid to show their challenges. Don't be afraid to show them in their slightly imperfect moments. This isn't to say be malicious and have them come across as somebody that isn't true to who they are by including only their mistakes and only their bad lines. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm trying to explain is that these moments of struggle can be really compelling in building that emotional bridge. This isn't a video about editing, but when it comes into the editing process, I am always being really intentional to include moments of human interactions in between voiceovers. Pairing the deeper reflections in the voiceover with those more human moments that you capture out in the field can really provide a lot of depth when it comes to creating a memorable adventure film. And my final tip is show, don't tell. We talk about this often in documentary filmmaking when it comes to storytelling, that we want to show the emotions. We don't want to tell the emotions. I believe that audiences are smart. Audiences can pick up on key plot points and key moments of the film, and you don't need to over-explain what's happening. Body language and expressions and visual cues, even reaction shots, can do a great job of communicating those emotions in the moment without having to over-explain it. Once we cut to voiceovers or interviews, you tend to lose a little bit of that authenticity. Being in the moment, in the field, the audience feels like we are right there with the character. So anything they say or they do, we will feel more deeply than if we are saying it in a voiceover afterwards. It's easy to manufacture impactful, important moments by putting cinematic music over it, having a nice interview shot, and having drone footage or a dramatic close-up. And while that may feel good and that may feel strong and emotional, it is way less authentic than having that moment or that experience or emotion play out in front of the camera in real time. So that's it. If you're looking for authenticity in your films, which I hope that you are, because authenticity can build those emotional connections and make a long-lasting impact on your viewer. As filmmakers, I believe that we are trying to imprint on our audiences things that we believe are stories that need to be told, adventures that need to be documented, memories that need to be captured. If we're able to share those in an authentic way, we can hopefully have a longer impact on the films that we're trying to create. If you have any films that are favorites of yours that you feel like show authentic storytelling really well, feel free to drop it in the comment. I always love checking out new adventure films. Thanks so much for watching. I love you. I'm proud of you. Have the best day ever. Peace.